We need more white guys giving their insight on things they don't understand.
Podwood Forecast.
I like feet. I thought you were just like,
That's
just like the favorites.
I'm gonna go get my flamethrowers.
Yeah, I have like 4 honorable mentions, I think. So I'll just do that really quick.
That's fine. All right. Hi, everyone.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah.
Hello.
I love doing that to you.
So mean.
Please excuse me. I'm eating some Savorites.
We're
reduced fat thin wheat crackers.
Don't eat in the mic. Everyone will hate you.
I will. Last time I was.
Or did you just mute yourself?
I was eating almonds and I had to like cut out some of it.
Okay,
so
good boy.
Don't worry.
Yeah, I listened to that episode, and I'm going to try to be very punctual about not saying like so much, because and I know pointing that out, like a lot of people.
And I
don't
edited
notice
out,
it.
but we both say a lot.
Yeah.
And you have this thing. It's really interesting.
Oh, no.
You have this thing where you always like you breathe in. You like.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so weird. I'm gonna like notice that now. But yeah, it's gonna still happen, but I'm going to I'm gonna attempt to not be as likety like.
It's fine.
So
I like you. It's fine.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Podwood Forecast.
Yeah,
I'm
welcome
Clifford.
back. I'm Mitchell.
And welcome to the Podwood Forecast. Few things I wanted to address. Mitchell, we're like famous now.
Are we?
Because our Avatar episode did really well.
Really?
And I haven't checked it in the last couple days, but it was like close to being our most played episode.
Oh, nice. It doesn't surprise me because of it going on Netflix. So it was trending everywhere.
Yeah, it's just interesting though because
very good timing to
Mumford and Sons.
That.
It was understandable because like
he posted it in the group, so people were
like, that, and people are like searching for Mumford and Sons in like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and such.
Yeah,
and then they just find it. And I didn't think that anyone would be looking for like an Avatar episode, but let's see. I want to compare.
I thought you were going to say something along the lines of, it got 10,000 plays or something.
No, but so our Mumford & Sons episode, which is still our most played episode, has 244 plays. Avatar, in the couple of months that it's been up, has 238 plays.
Oh, cool.
That's like the most plays that we've had for like
the amount of time.
Yeah, for the amount of time that it's been up.
That's cool.
So
my sister said she listened to it.
Awesome. And we got some feedback, actually.
Ooh.
We got like quite a handful of reviews.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Just from random people?
Yeah, from random people.
Oh, cool. Not people we know and are bribing.
Yeah, exactly. We got a bunch of ratings, only a couple reviews. So people... if you want a shout out, you're going to have to leave a review.
Part of me is hoping one of them is like 4 stars and is like, I like it, but here's what you can do better. Or are they both like 5-star? Perfect.
We did get a 4-star.
Okay.
So altogether, we have 7 ratings.
Because I like when people say, I really like what you're doing, but here's what you can do better, because I'm always wondering, could our format be better?
They didn't really critique anything. They just
okay. That's fair.
I'll just go ahead and read it. We have 2 reviews. So just want to remind you guys,
gross.
If you want a shout out on the show, go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review. Not just a rating, because we won't be able to see it.
We read your reviews.
Yes. So this one,
unless they are really awful and vulgar,
so. We'll just bleep it out. Yeah. I'll read it anyways. Actually, I'll start with this older one since they reviewed first.
Are these okay? Cool.
This one comes from Black325. 5 stars. Hilarious, they said. So, I'm a new listener, and you guys already got me hooked. Oh. Awesome podcast on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, rad.
You guys definitely got me as a listener, and I'll be sharing to all my friends that listen to good podcasts, LOL. You guys should check out the 90s anime Slayers and do a podcast. Thumbs up.
I've actually heard of that. I heard it's good. I don't know what it looks like or anything, but I have some friends who have mentioned that show before. I don't know anything about it though. But 90s anime is always sort of cool. So
yeah, and I would say never. But one of the concepts for this show is that we talk about things that we both like
it could be interesting
watched or seen or whatever.
Yeah, it could be interesting though. Like if I just said like, oh no, it could be interesting though if we take an episode to do a user suggestion or something. Maybe that every now and not all the time.
Just don't get the idea that we're like an anime podcast because we're not. That was like the first time that we ever like dived into like anything close to anime.
Yeah,
I don't know if you even watch a lot of anime.
We observe entertainment of all kinds. I guess you could
it's
say.
True. But like I would say we're the most like casual anime review fans, I guess.
Yeah, I've watched Dragon Ball Z and Gundam. That's pretty much it. I have Cowboy Bebop on Blu-ray because people tell me I would enjoy that show, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I've always wanted to watch that too.
Yeah,
and I love a lot of Studio Ghibli films.
Yeah, anime films are really cool, like Akira and Studio Ghibli.
Akira is one of my favorite films of all time. I would love to do an episode on
That'd be cool. I want to rewatch it too.
I think I'm a little bit more into anime than you are.
Yeah, you are for sure.
I like
it. I just don't go out of my way to watch it.
Everyone loves Death Note though. It's like the most, what do you call,
accessible?
Accessible, yeah. But I was gonna say I'm like the most normie anime fan.
Yeah.
So I like Death Note.
You watch the ones that everyone knows about.
Yeah, I just started getting into Attack on Titan, and I can't really think of anything else. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we'll check out Slayer. But thank you so much for the feedback.
Yeah, man.
Black 325. This review comes from Pippity Poppity.
I love your name. Give us the zoppity.
4 stars. He says,
I don't like you anymore.
Oh.
Just kidding. No,
he or she says, keep pushing. I'm very impressed with the tone of your podcast and feel refreshed after listening to a couple episodes. Keep up the good work. Would want to listen to an episode based on your all's childhood and relate to it what you see out of kids today.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Because it kind of could be on topic, because our childhood could correlate with music and movies we grew up with in a way. So it could be a blend of things.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I don't know, look back on all our episodes. We usually have, like, a one thing that we talk about, mostly because, like, it's it's something that people know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Mumford and Sons, I know. Or Avatar,
What if we did an episode, or like maybe a few episodes based on the theme of nostalgia, like things we grew up with. So, let's talk about video games we played as a child, or movies we watched as a kid, or shows. Something just like media we consumed as children, back in the day.
Yeah, I just feel like that this is a topic that could be like addressed in any episode.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I like the concept.
Never say never.
Yeah.
But like I said, we mainly just kind of talk about, I say popular things, but then we do an episode on Robin Hood. BBC. Yeah. But yeah, either way, thanks so much, Pippity Poppity, for the feedback.
Thanks for the zoppity.
Yes. Thanks for the zoppity and the poppity. And I already said poppity, whatever. I also had someone message me randomly on Instagram saying that they found our podcast and they had other animes for us to watch.
People really want us to watch anime.
People that want to watch the anime.
Let's take advantage of that crowd and get more viewers.
Podwood Forecast is now an anime podcast.
Yeah.
Never will that happen.
There's probably, I don't know, but I'm assuming there's probably not a ton. No, there probably is. I'm like, I wonder how many anime themed podcasts there are. There's probably a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I'm assuming that is a really big market. So obviously we would never only do anime stuff, but if we ever watched a movie, an anime film or something,
yeah,
always down to talk about it. So I'm just not really into watching anime shows that often. I'm really bad at watching shows and series. I can watch movies all day, but keeping up on a series I'm really bad at unless I really get into it.
Yeah, so I'm really liking Attack on Titan.
Yeah,
I can see why.
I tried watching it and I couldn't get into it. I don't know. It was okay.
I remember I tried it a few years ago, and I was like, subtitles? Ew, no.
Yeah, and a lot of
shows. It's like gotten me really emotional, actually, watching some of the episodes. But
for sure.
Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. And that's not my recommendation. I have the recommendation for this episode.
Oh, nice.
We are going to talk about our top 5 favorite albums as best as we could.
Yeah.
List them, I guess.
And this isn't an objective. Like, we think these are the best albums. Obviously, I mean that's a given with most like top 10 things. But I just like to clarify because a lot of people were like,
The Wall.
Yeah. So this is our personal favorite albums of all time. We're gonna do a top 5 because top 10 would take way too long. And because we're only doing a top 5, it was really hard for me to make this list because there's so many albums I love, and I felt bad leaving a lot of them out. So I'll mention I'll mention a couple honorable mentions that I really wanted to include in my top 5, but ultimately didn't make the cut, of course. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to get those ready. So my honorable mentions that I almost included are Narrow Stairs by Death Cab for Cutie, Crack Up by Fleet Foxes, A Black Mile to the Surface by Manchester Orchestra, and my final honorable mention is going to be the Blue Album by Weezer.
I was thinking that A Black Mile was going to be in the top 5.
It was really close to being my number 5. I knew it was
up there in your top 10.
It's totally, all the ones I mentioned are in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah. Let me think.
I can... If you want to take time to find that, I can just go to my number 5, and then you can do your honorable mentions when it's your turn.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right. So, yeah, you can look through that. I will move on to my number 5. So,
number 5.
I switched the order on this a lot, but I'm feeling... And you guys know me. Every time I do some kind of list or something, I'm pretty non-concrete about lists with things because I feel like the next week I'll want to change my mind and I'll be like, no, maybe that should have been number 4. But I spent quite a bit of time feeling pretty good about this, and there's still a chance. Like, I think my number 1 and 2 are always going to be like solid, but it's one of those things where anything above that could probably change at some point. But I took all week to really solidify this list and feel good about it. So yeah,
I was like distracted from work.
Yeah,
thinking about
I couldn't
this
sleep,
list.
I couldn't eat, but I'm feeling good about my top 5 right now. So,
all right,
my number 5 album is "Like Clockwork" by Queens of the Stone Age. I've mentioned this album to you a lot. I think this is tied for like one of the most quintessential rock albums of all time. This and one other album I'll mention later. Obviously, I don't want to spoil it, but this is one of the best rock albums ever. I love Queens of the Stone Age. I love all of their albums, but this is my favorite one. A lot of people might prefer Songs for the Deaf a little over this one, but this was always my favorite. I just think it is top tier when it comes to guitar riffs and melodies, and I love Josh Homme's voice and the drumming. I think Dave Grohl drums on this album. No, I know he drums on Songs for the Deaf. I can't remember if he drums for some songs on this one, but even when it's not Dave Grohl drumming, their main drummer is still fantastic. But they're just one of the best bands when it comes to guitar riffs and guitar melodies and instrumentation, and their production on this album especially is so clean and loud and so good. I adore every single song on this album. And yeah, and it's good variety too. I love rock albums that aren't just consistently one mood the whole time, you know?
Yeah.
I like when, okay, here's a more chill song, but it's not like here's the boring song on the album. It's like they're really good at having the more toned down songs still be very interesting when it comes to their instrumentation. They're not lazy with any of it. And it's just a fantastic listen the whole way through. And I love it. I listen to it at least like once every few weeks. So
what are some highlights of the album?
So my favorite song, I know my favorite song for sure is, let me open it and look at it. My favorite, I can't decide if my favorite song is My God is the Sun or Keep Your Eyes Peeled. Keep Your Eyes Peeled is the opener. It's one of my favorite openings. to any album ever. It's such a good opener, such a sinister tone, and it's almost like it's like chill, but it's dark and almost creepy, and it's very low pitched guitar tones and stuff. But between that and My God Is the Sun are both incredible, and I also really love I Appear Missing. Yeah, such a pleasant listen. But I would say my favorite songs that come to mind are Keep Your Eyes Peeled, I Sat by the Ocean, If I Had a Tail, My God Is the Sun, I Appear Missing. Those are probably my favorites. I mean, I could name... That's the thing.
List the whole album.
For an album to be one of my favorite albums, like, an album can have some of my favorite songs, but if the whole album isn't good, I'm not going to consider it one of my favorite albums. So my top 5, a theme is that every single song is good. Like, I love every single song on all these albums. So yeah, it's hard for me to choose a few favorites because I love the whole thing consistently all the way throughout. But if I turned it on and just wanted to listen to one song, I would likely go with My God Is the Sun.
Gotcha.
It's like a quintessential Queens of the Stone Age song, in my opinion.
Queens
Such a good
of
opener,
Stone
such an
Age.
awesome guitar line and chorus. It's so good. So good.
So good.
So yeah, that's my number 5.
Well, I mean, I wish I could like add on to that.
Yeah, you haven't really listened to them, and I think you could. I don't know.
I
know you don't really listen to that kind of rock, but I think there's aspects to
listen
Queens
to
of the Stone
anything.
Age that you would really, really like.
Yeah, from what I've heard, I just haven't really taken the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I have my honorable mentions.
Sweet.
And I'll use that as my transition into my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
So honorable mentions. I mean, there's so many that I could mention, but
Yeah.
I'll just I'll stick with like my current favorite bands. So I would say We're All Gonna Die by Dawes. It's my favorite Dawes album.
Oh, I almost thought that was going to be in your top 5. Actually,
No, but it's very close.
Yeah,
definitely top 10. And then I would say the self-titled album by Augustines.
Oh, nice.
So it was the first album that I really got into by them. And then Demon Days by Gorillaz.
Gotcha.
So this one I had a struggle with because Demon Days really could be my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I was battling between it and what my actual number 5 is. And they really are interchangeable, these two albums. Mm-hmm. And just for this podcast, I decided to pick the other one since literally the last episode, we talked all about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I already declared my love for it.
Would be repeating yourself a lot, so.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So, yeah. So those were my honorable mentions. And my number 5 is The Everglow by May.
Oh, nice.
Remembering everything about my world and when you came, wondering the change you'd bring.
I knew you loved that album. I don't know if I expected it to be top 5.
Because, the thing is like, it was like the first concept album that I ever really became aware of.
Yeah.
And so
you do always mention how you love the concept of that album, and you have brought it up quite a few times.
Yeah,
so.
and the thing is that like I'm actually not. The Everglow is like the only album that I really like by May.
Yeah, probably same.
I've never
I love
been
that.
like
I love
the
the
biggest May fan. I really like them, but I really love the Everglow, and I also want to reiterate that, just because they're in our top 5 doesn't mean that we think that they're like, some of these albums that I pick, and I have the most basic.
Yeah.
I have the most basic taste for my top 5, but I get it. I understand, and
a lot of it has to do with what music did you grow up with, and because I have albums that I could see as a basic album to choose, but because of the way it makes me feel and it brings me back to a certain time, it's all dependent. Music is very interesting.
Yeah, and I love the feel of this album. There's something about this album that is unique, that even though a lot of their albums are very similar, the exact vibe of this album couldn't really be replicated in any of their other music. And it was interesting to me because at the time of discovering this album, I was getting into a lot of tooth and nail bands and this kind of music, like alternative, emo, punk, whatever, I don't even know. Mm-hmm. But I remember I discovered this album in the library and I checked it out, and I really loved the artwork for it and such, which is it is a big part of this album, but it works together because when there's this booklet, and it's like a storybook, kind of every song. And the thing is that even though it technically is a concept album, it's not really that clear of what the concept is.
Right, yeah.
But you see this artwork and you see this guy going through this forest or something. And so there is some sort of theme. And I love the whole feel of the album. It's heavy and very, rockish, but there's some beautiful melodic aspects to it that I really love. I love a lot of the piano work and the keys and such, and it really works well together. And it's not it's some sort of rock techno or whatever, but it's beautifully implemented, and
it's a very well produced album. I haven't listened to it a ton, but I do really like it.
Yeah,
and I love the production of it.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's just one of the first albums that I really realized where it's there's a common theme. This is not just a collection of songs.
Yeah.
But there's something going on here. And
it kind of introduced you to the idea of a concept album.
Yeah, pretty much. And I love how the album opens up. It's this soft music, and it's like a cassette tape playing where it's hello and welcome to the Everglow by May. If you listen to these sounds, you know when to turn the page or whatever.
Hello, and welcome to the Everglow by May. You are now listening to the audio portion of the album. To complete your experience, please open the booklet that accompanies the compact disc. Good. You are now ready to experience the Everglow.
And then it goes into We're So Far Away, which is this really nice piano-led intro, piano and voice with some symphony behind it and some really nice vocals in it. And when it ends, it's this big, just bang, just It's oh, okay, now the album has really started. And then it goes into Someone Else's Arms, which is great. And I love it. A lot of these songs have some really great intros, like Suspension, This Is the Countdown, and Ready and Waiting to Fall, Anything. Just some... It's the kind of album that I would love to play, in the middle of the day, like driving on a, in a beautiful, beautiful weather and all that. And it just like puts me in a good mood, but also like a sort of adventurous mood at the same time. And yeah, I love it a lot. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it could be interchangeable with Demon Days, and I know a lot of people could argue that Demon Days is the better album. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It's just I have a special attachment to this album that isn't. I've known this album longer than Demon Days, so that there is that
emotional attachment and enjoyability trumps over like technicality.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's technically produced better, but if I can be emotionally attached to an album that sounds like garbage, but if I love it, and it's one of my favorite albums, so there's an emotional attachment is essentially what decides your favorite album at the end of the day, because there are albums I'm like, this is produced so well and I love it and it sounds amazing, but it's not one of my favorite albums. So
yeah, exactly.
But again, the Everglow is really well produced anyway. So
I can't remember.
And I do think that is still really, really important to us because we are musicians and we do record. So if something is poorly produced or recorded, that can dampen an album for us, I feel like. So
yeah, and I think it gave me a better idea of like, the importance of creating a mood with your music. Totally. I guess I know that sounds kind of weird.
No, I know what you mean for sure.
But yeah, so
because you think of the album art and the theme and the aesthetic, and you hear
the music great.
Yeah, it's like with me that you like an album like 10 Stories is kind of a similar thing where it's. You hear the music and you picture the album art in that style, and and it's kind of the same. Like how you were describing that album, but it's pretty similar to how I would describe something like 10 Stories by Me Without You.
Right. Yeah.
Hello again. This concludes the Everglow by May. I hope you enjoyed your journey. Good night.
And also, May, I've been wanting this album on vinyl, so please put it on vinyl again. Yeah. I don't know if it's been on vinyl before, but yeah. So surprised. That's it. That's my number 5. I need to grab my phone charger. You can go ahead and start.
Okie dokes.
You're number 4.
I'll wait a few seconds. Okay. I'll wait until I see you walking back. Oh, it's right. Oh, you're right there. I thought you were going in like your bedroom or something. All right. My number 4. This may not surprise you because I've been talking about it a lot recently. My number 4 is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, David Bowie. The best album name ever.
Really? Because you've only just been getting into David Bowie.
Well, I've always loved this album, but I've never gone outside of this album.
Gotcha.
Until pretty recently, and now I'm diving into his discography like crazy. And Black Star became one of my favorite albums too. It was between this and Black Star, and I only wanted to do one artist. Obviously, I didn't want to have 3 of these albums be by the same artist because that's possible for me.
Right.
But I wanted to diversify. But it was between this and Black Star. But this one I've known for a long time. But this year I've been getting into his other stuff. I just mentioned Black Star a few times, Station to Station. That's like my holy trinity of Bowie albums right now. But I have a little more attachment to this one because I've known it more.
Yeah.
And I also just believe that it's an album that anyone knows at least a couple of the songs from it, even if you don't realize you do. Mm-hmm. Every song on Ziggy Stardust is a single. like every song on this album, it's
like all his hits.
It's 11 songs, 38 minutes. It's not the longest album, but every song on this album I feel like has been used in something. Like it was in a video game, or it was in a trailer. Like any song on this album could have been a single, I feel like. Just every single one is so good. And I've always really loved it. And I have some friends who are huge Bowie fans, and I was like, I love Ziggy Stardust. I never really considered it one of my favorite albums until like I got into his other stuff and became more of a Bowie fan.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a recent development for me, but I've listened to it so much right now. And it's a theme, the title is literally about an alien named Ziggy Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars is his band, and he comes to Earth, and the theme of the album is him coming to Earth and blowing everyone's minds, and which is literally a lyric, and it's just like a weird. Bowie's really great with themes and storytelling and being like fun and goofy, but I also just really respect Bowie because you look at production credits and it's like guitar David Bowie, production David Bowie, synth David Bowie, saxophone David Bowie. It's like he does everything.
Wow,
he's just so talented.
I feel like David Bowie is pretty underrated.
Yeah, not many people know
More
about
people
him.
should know about him.
But yeah, I mean, my favorite songs on this are 5 Years.
I've been listening to that.
Starman is like everyone knows Starman. There's a starman waiting in the sky. You know that song, even if you don't think you do. It Ain't Easy, Star, Suffragette City is so good. Rock and Roll Suicide, just every song on it I love. I can't really. It's another instance. I probably won't really bother saying my favorite songs from albums because I love every song on all of my top 5 albums.
Yeah,
I can still choose. I'll try and choose like a couple highlights for sure. But
yeah,
but 5 Years is. Probably there's between my top 5 albums, 3 of them I would say are tied for my favorite openers to an album. So I said Keep Your Eyes Peeled by Queens of the Stone Age, the opener for this one, and then my number 1 album, which I'll mention later, of course. Those 3 are like my favorite openers to any albums, and I can't really decide which one I like most. But 5 Years is such a great intro. I love the way the drums fade in.
5 years.
And it just builds up, and then he's like, it's a theme for me. I love when singers scream and just yell and go crazy. Not like screamo, but they just get really loud and ecstatic and just like they just go crazy. And Bowie has such a good presence. And
in the news today, David Bowie gets murdered. The murderer says, "I just loved to hear him scream."
It's so evil and awful. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I adore this album. It's just so good, and I've grown to really respect Bowie as an artist, and he's become one of my favorites in general. So many good albums. And it was really close to having this one be Black Star because Black Star is so good, but it's also like a pretty hard album to listen to just because of the context of it being his last, and it's really sad, but it's equally as creative and interesting. But yeah, Ziggy Stardust is a masterpiece. It's one of the best rock albums of all time. It's my top 5, they're like all rock albums pretty much. If I had a top 10, there would be... If we were doing top 10, there'd be like some folk and a rap album here and there and stuff. But my top 5 is pretty much all the same genre.
Yeah.
Which shows like the kind of music I listen to. But yeah. So David Bowie.
Cool. I should check him out.
It's so good. He delves into like folk style stuff a lot as well. I feel like there's a lot on this album that you would really like.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are like, "Wait, you don't listen to David Bowie?" Like, I mean, like I've listened to the hits, of course, and I like it. I just it's one of those things where the artist has like so much music where it's like intimidating.
I almost had to research and talk to people who know him about which albums to listen to, because there are
people who know him personally.
Well, people that like love him and they know which albums are bad because he has a lot of albums, and there are eras like late 80s and 90s Bowie people generally don't like. It's like 70s and much later on is usually what people appreciate the most from him, and I pretty much agree. It takes quite a bit of dedication to get into him because it is intimidating, because of course Spotify is like, oh, best of this, and here's a compilation album and a rematch. It's just overwhelming. It's like when you go to the Beach Boys Spotify and there's 1,000 albums and you don't know which one is like actually an album and which one's a compilation.
Or Bob Dylan.
Yeah,
Bob Dylan.
It's overwhelming, crazy. So it's hard to get into, but I'll send you the albums I think that are worth listening to. But I think Ziggy Stardust is the absolute best starting point.
Okay.
I think it's his best album.
Well, I've already been jamming 5 years lately, so...
Yeah, listen to the whole album. Every song is great.
Okay.
Every song is good.
Okay, fine.
So yeah, that's my number 4 of my fourth favorite album of all time.
All right, David Bowie. I loved his work in The Prestige. So we're going to take a break now. That's our time. We're on a tight schedule here, guys, because we have the other podcast that needs to... I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, talk.
I'm like thinking of old shows that are like, all right, we're out of time because we have the next show that's coming on, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll see you guys in you'll be
enjoy commercial.
Yeah, bye.
You're not alone. Just turn on with me, and you're not alone. Let's turn on and be not alone. Give me your hands, 'cause you're wonderful. Give me your hands, 'cause you're wonderful. Oh, give me your
Come to my pool party before we go back to school. Lemonade and confetti. Come on and jump in my pool. Watch me cannonball.
Welcome back.
Yeah, don't shout.
I saw the red line. I saw it recording.
Welcome back, everyone, to the best
Hello.
podcast in the world. It's my number 4. Excuse me, I still have some wheat thins in my mouth.
That's a
I'm gonna
common
get.
issue. Lots of people know about that.
The bad
struggle.
case of the wheat thins. Okay,
You fool.
so my number 4, Reddit, stop notifying me.
That's a weird album name.
By Reddit, yeah. My number 4 is The Long Fall Back to Earth by Jars of Clay.
Nice.
Did you expect that?
I think I'm not surprised that a Jars of Clay album is on here. Which one is that? I'm trying to remember.
That's the
Like
one,
the album. What's the album art?
It's the one when they're like, It's them walking. It's like a black and white picture of them walking.
Oh yeah,
on
it's
the
purple
street.
text.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good album.
Yes.
I think I think I was expecting a Jars of Clay to show up at least somewhere.
Yeah.
I didn't know which one though.
Lately, it's kind of been their album "Much Afraid" has been kind of getting up there with me, but this one just holds a near and dear place in my heart. "Much Afraid" is a really great album.
Yeah.
But this was the first album I ever really listened to by them, and I was aware of Jars of Clay, of course, before, because
right.
how could you be, like a Christian and not know about Jars of Clay?
Yeah.
But I never really paid attention to them until my friend Lucas Berrickman just like randomly gave me this album for my birthday. He actually introduced me to a lot of music that I ended. He introduced me to Anne Boleyn,
Right.
which their album "Cities" would be one of my probably a top 10.
Mm-hmm.
But he gave me this one, and I was like, "Oh, interesting." And I listened to it, and I'd mentioned before how the Everglow was like the first album that was like, "Oh, this is like a concept." But this was the first album where I was like, "Oh, this album has some consistency in its sound, and it's like intentional." And I'd never noticed that before in an album. And I praise this album for introducing that concept to me for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And it's just got some really great songs. I love the whole vibe of this album. There I go again.
Yeah.
with vibe. But it's and it was a very different sound it was a different step for Jars of Clay, because they had already been known for more folky kinda, and they had their album before, Good Monsters, which was definitely more rocky. That's where like Work is from. But this one had like an interesting like electronic kind of influence on this album, and it's very we were talking about the Killers earlier. A lot of this seems very Killers inspired, and
I can totally see that.
And it really works well. I love how this album starts out with the opening track, The Long Fall. It's like this continuous kind of like piano loop, and it like continues to build up. Those are some of my like favorite kinds of album intros, is like instrumental kind of like build up, and then it goes into weapons, and it's just a great sonic sound that it has. And I'm gonna pull it up here. I didn't have it pulled up. But it's kind of surprising how many people don't really care about this album as much, but it's got some great tunes and very consistent sound, really great production.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I remember when you were showing me a lot of stuff from Jars of Clay that you liked, and you included some stuff from that album, and they were really good.
Yeah.
And I think I listened through all of it at least once or twice. Like I definitely did. But
it's pretty
but
good.
I haven't listened to it a bunch, so I can't contribute too much. But I do know I have listened to it, and it was easily, of all the Jars of Clay stuff I listened to, it was one of the ones I liked the most out of all their stuff, for sure.
Yeah, and the production is great. I love the way that the guitars sound, and it's got some also really cool, more atmospheric tracks, like Safe to Land and Headphones. And that's another thing is that I've always loved about Jars of Clay is their lyricism. Their lyricism is so good, and I'm always envious of their style, of their way of writing. Like Headphones is probably my favorite track off the album, and the whole song is about how it's talking about like being detached from like bad things that are going on in the world, and how it's so easy to just kind of using headphones as like a metaphor to like just tune out to what's going on. And it's a really inspiring track.
at the tube stop. You sit down across from me. I think I know you by the sad eyes that I see. I wanna tell you
It's a heavy world.
everything will be okay. You wouldn't hear it,
I don't wanna have to.
so we go our separate ways. With our headphones on.
There's this other song, Boys, Lesson 1. It's basically kind of like, the song is almost like a father giving life lessons to his son.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Oh, and also the song Hero has a very interesting, it has a very Spyro-esque sound to it.
I think I've actually listened to that one because I remember thinking that when I was listening to one of the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Hero.
glad that's a comparison you and I just automatically know what it means.
yeah. We've talked about Spyro before, but like every Spyro fan that I've ever known, like my friend Matt Martin is, we always have that conversation like, oh, this sounds like very Spyro-esque.
Yeah, because the
It's
soundtrack
like,
is so distinct, so when you hear something similar, it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I automatically think of that.
yeah, it's so unique.
And we need a hero. Save us from ourselves. We need a hero. Save us from ourselves. Save us from ourselves. Save us from our fears.
And they did a lot of really interesting stuff with this album that they didn't before, and that's why I really appreciate it. And I was able to get this one on vinyl by some miracle because they're not really even selling it anymore. Yeah, The Long Fall, Back to Earth, and I really like how it's, the album starts off like soft and then gradually builds up and it's all big, and then the last song is just, it's like the album is like slowly dying down.
Yeah.
And I really like that. It's really conclusive. Heart is a really interesting track on the album because they really experiment a lot with like synth sounds and the production choices
Totally.
on that. And yeah, so I think that's all I really have to say
Nice.
about the album. Jars of Clay is one of my favorite bands, and this is my favorite album from them. So
Nice.
yeah.
Heck yeah.
Your turn. You
All
try.
right. So my number 3 is going to be Nirvana's final album, In Utero by Nirvana.
Sorry, that's an
That's
old
the
joke.
Foo
that I keep
Fighters
saying.
guy, right?
David Bowie or Nirvana? What?
But yeah, this one I was really struggling with the placement of. I honestly almost kind of wanted to make it number 2, but I just quite couldn't, just barely. But it's number 3.
Quite couldn't.
I love Nirvana. I mean, that's obviously no secret.
Yeah.
But In Utero is the album I bless you. In Utero is the album I listen to constantly, like out of their discography. I listen to it a lot. It contains like 2 of the songs on here are like some of my favorite songs of all time, just in general.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good album from start to finish.
This is one of my favorites from Nirvana.
Yeah.
Definitely
I think it's
one of my
easily
favorite albums of all time.
I don't think it's a hot take to say it's their best album because Nevermind has their really big hits like In Bloom and Smells Like Teen Spirit and stuff. But I always liked In Utero more, and it's just really good. And it was such a, I mean, it's sad that it had to be their last album, obviously, but it was a good final album. Yeah, you know, and I just love it. For like Serve the Servants is such a great opener, and then Scentless Apprentice I especially love because that's one of the songs where Kurt Cobain is just like screaming his face off and just screeching and going mental, and I love when he does stuff like that. He has such a amazing vocal performance throughout this whole album, and he's always been an amazing singer, but on this album in particular I always felt like he just went a little more crazy, and I always really loved that. And he would also tone it down a little more than usual too on some songs, and I loved that. And there's a few songs where he just like freaks out and screams and goes crazy and stuff. but and then obviously after that is Heart-Shaped Box, which is absolutely one of my favorite songs of just all time.
She has me like a Pisces when I am weak. I've been locked inside your heart-shaped box for weeks. I've been drawn into your magnet trap. I wish I could eat your cancer when you turn back. Hey, wait, I gotta look away.
It's amazing.
It's so good, and I can't decide if I like that or All Apologies more. Those are the 2 songs on this album that are absolutely some of my favorite songs ever, and mainly because kind of similar to Queens of the Stone Age. Just this is I like it more than like Clockwork by a little bit. So I would probably say that this is the rock album. Like if someone asked me, "Hey, I want to get into rock music. Which album should I listen to?" This is the album.
Just smack this in their face.
Yeah, it would be this or like Clockwork, but this would come first. I would be, listen to this. If you don't like this, then you won't like rock music, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's quintessential. All Apologies is the final closing song, and it's
such a great closer.
It's such a good closer, and it's kind of emotionally traumatizing to listen to it as their last song too, in the context of Kurt Cobain dying.
Yeah,
because the lyrics on it are just like sad and it's hard. And I love Kurt Cobain's writing, even if I don't really get it all the time. Like on Heart-Shaped Box, like lines like "I wish I could eat your cancer when you turn black," and on All Apologies, like "I'll take all the blame, aqua sea foam shame," just stuff like that. I always found, like, even if I like what aqua sea foam shame, like I don't really know what that means maybe, but I love the imagery it gives me, and it makes me want to look into the lyrics and understand what they mean. And that's a common theme with a lot of my favorite albums ever is lyrics aren't super like the main thing I need for a good album, because like Queens of the Stone Age, like I think they're great. I don't think their lyrics blow my mind though, but I still think they're one of the best rock albums. But I love when lyrics make me think about something and visualize something and want to look into it a little bit more without distracting from the music itself. And because some people like I won't name any artists because I don't want to like offend anyone, but it was just, maybe there's certain artists that get a little too weird with lyrics, and it's like, what do you? It's distracting,
too abstract,
yeah,
too weird.
And my favorite band is Me Without You, so you could argue that they're like that, but I don't know. I'm a little weird. I like lyrics that make me think, but don't distract from the music itself. But yeah, I love his lyricism, and it's not always super artsy and complicated, but I think he's such a creative writer, and
he says what he wants to say.
Yeah, exactly. I always had listened to, like Heart Shaped Box, All Apologies, Serve the Servants is one of my favorites, but whenever I listen through the album just all the way through in order, it's always incredible. You know? So it definitely has my highlights, like I said, I'll reiterate just for like 100th time, but Heart Shaped Box and All Apologies are absolutely my two favorites. And maybe that's the obvious choice, but I think it's okay because those are the big hits for a reason, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And something I always thought was cool, it's kind of on topic, but Me Without You, when they covered Nirvana for that tribute album that Tooth and Nail did, they covered In Bloom, and Aaron incorporates lyrics from All Apologies into an In Bloom cover. And it's really cool. He just takes a verse from All Apologies and puts it in
it's like they were like, can we cover All Apologies?
Yeah,
no, you can't.
Just one verse.
It's like, fine.
Yeah, it's basically
We'll
All Apologies blended with In Bloom. And it's really cool. So I'm like, wow, my favorite band covering one of my other favorite bands' best songs. It totally sounds different, but yeah, this album, I've loved it since I was a teenager. I've always loved Nirvana, but especially the last couple years, this album has grown on me way more than it. Just because I would always listen to the big hits from Nirvana, but like a few years back, and I finally started listening to. I mean, I had listened through all of their albums before, but I only really paid attention and dove into their albums and lyrics and paid, closer attention to detail and stuff. And that's kind of when I decided that this was my favorite album, because I used to think Nevermind just because it had their best hits, but just as a whole album in general. And I also think it has their best songs completely. But yeah, it's an album that means a lot to me, and it's a cool, fun rock album. You just listen to it and it's like, yeah, this is cool, but I also just love how deep it gets, and it's kind of heartbreaking too, just to think of it as their last album, and listening to All Apologies is like the goodbye from Kurt Cobain. Just makes me sad. But
yeah,
it's so good. It's a really powerful album, and I love it. So. Yeah.
Cool.
Here's my number 3.
Nirvana.
It was almost my number 2, but I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, that's the struggle. I mean, this one could be my number 2 as well. But, yeah. So, my number 3 is, and this I think I did mention earlier, like just how basic my taste is, but but this is a legitimately good album, and I don't know anyone that doesn't like it.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends by Coldplay.
Oh yeah.
it's
Wait, is that the whole title?
yeah.
Is it weird that I didn't know that? I just always thought it was.
Well, Viva La Vida is like the hit from the album,
Yeah,
but the actual album is Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends. It's like that.
I always
old
just thought the album
school-
was called Viva La Vida.
Nope.
Huh.
I mean, people will say that to like
Yeah.
just because it's the short way.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you look it up, that's the whole title.
I know it's like cool and funny to hate on Coldplay as if they're Imagine Dragons now, but they have
not.
good albums, and
They-
Viva La Vida is a good album.
Yeah,
I'll defend it.
like for all the Coldplay haters, I don't know anyone who has listened to this album and doesn't like it.
Yeah, and I'm someone who doesn't like their new stuff. I mean, their newest album was like a lot better, but I do hate on a lot of their newer-ish like pop.
We have our
phase.
criticisms, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
We could totally have our own Coldplay episode.
I totally think some of their stuff is like pop garbage, like typical generic, but they have a lot of really good earlier stuff, and their newest album wasn't that bad either. But Viva La Vida is a really good album.
It is.
I think it's really good.
It's like this is another like example of like, yeah, this isn't just a collection of songs.
Yeah.
This album is a whole mood, you know.
Yeah, it's a movie, man.
It's a whole theme.
It's gonna be a movie.
Not a movie. What? I said mood.
Oh, I know. I heard movie and went along with it. I'm done. Don't worry about it.
But like, I really love because you can kind of see in like earlier albums how they were trying to be a little bit more artistic,
Yeah.
but they definitely hit the nail on the head with this album because while you do have, of course you have the big huge hit, which is Viva La Vida,
Yeah.
which is still an amazing song.
It's
I
a
don't
good
care.
song, yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, it's like the same chords over and over, but
There is
you can still make
absolutely
that sound good.
There's nothing wrong with that song. It's fine. It was
yeah.
popular and people got sick of it because it was overplayed, but
Yeah,
it's still a good
but it's
song.
it was very unique for its time because
Yeah.
it's like it's just this orchestra and
It doesn't
like a
seem like something that should have
four
been
on the
mainstream.
floor kick, yeah. And I remember this was listening to that song was like my first introduction to Coldplay, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, once you gone, it was never an honest word. That was when I ruled the world.
But like listening to the whole album, and like I was saying, like, yeah, Viva La Vida is like the pop song hit or whatever, but there's a lot of songs that are like really almost like avant-garde-ish sort of,
Yeah.
but still very listenable. Like,
It was one of those albums where people would hear Viva La Vida and they'd be like, oh, cool. And then they go to listen to the whole album and
it was like, oh wow, this
What?
is not what I was
Okay.
expecting. Like,
this isn't fun.
yes, has a moment where like the downbeat like switches in the middle of the song. It's like boo doo 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 boo doo
Yeah.
doo boo doo doo doo, and then like the snare and the kick kind of like switch up. I know that doesn't make sense, but
You're so smart.
but like Lovers in Japan and 42 they're just some really really interesting decisions that they make
Yeah.
with some of those songs, and just aesthetically as well, the whole sound of it is so beautiful and so consistent, and just like Long Fall Back to Earth, it has one of my favorite intros to an album with Life in Technicolor, where it's like it's an instrumental track that like starts off soft with these synths and then it builds up, and it's a great jam too.
Yeah.
They actually have a version on an EP that they came out with after this with actual lyrics to it, and I still
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
But Life in Technicolor is great, and then it goes into Cemeteries of London, and you have Lost, and it just goes on, and the final track is a very I feel like a lot of these tracks are very underrated.
Yeah.
But Death and All His Friends is an amazing track.
Yeah.
It starts off with just like piano and Chris Martin singing, and then it goes into this jam. do 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 do, and then it continues to build. I was like, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then the song ends, and you think that it's done, but it goes back into that part that's in the beginning of the album from Life in Technicolor, and it's almost as if you could like put the album on repeat, and it's like a continuous loop, sorta.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to. There's not many albums that do that, but another album just off the top of my head is Nonagon Infinity by King Gizzard. It ends and then loops back into the first song, so it's like you could listen to it forever.
Yeah, pretty
so
much.
Yeah, I think it's cool when albums do that because it's not a tropey thing to do. Because I can only think of two examples, this and that. So
yeah, it's. And also Violet Hill is another great
I like that
song.
one. Yeah, it's a
I
nice
feel
one.
is overrated. I mean underrated. Sorry.
That song sucks.
When the future's architecture by a carnival of idiots unshown, you better lie low. If you love me, won't you let me know? Was a long and dark descent.
Yeah, I just have so much love for this album. It's definitely their best, and even though it'd be nice if they like went back to this, I don't think this album could ever be topped.
Probably not.
honestly.
It's definitely the best album they made. I was kind of surprised. I went to Spotify to look at the track list, and I noticed all their popular albums. Viva La Vida wasn't even part of the 4 most listened to albums.
Really?
It was their
Okay.
yeah, because they show like what albums from them are the most popular
Yeah.
right now, and Viva La Vida wasn't even showing. Like Viva La Vida, the song is their number 5 on their most popular songs, but the popular releases, it's not even on there. Of course, Parachutes is on there. Parachutes is,
Yeah.
but I think Viva La
Parachutes
Vida
and-
was always their best album.
Yeah, and it's kind of. Oh well, you kind of. I'm looking at it now, and you kind of got like one from every album almost, but
Yeah,
people definitely don't. They don't really think of that of this album anymore. Really,
they think of the song, but they don't think of the album.
yeah, and it's such a shame
Yeah.
because it was such a great artistic endeavor on their part.
And it's a long album too, so I think people are just intimidated and they're like, whatever, I don't want to listen to it.
It's actually not that long in
It's like an hour and 18 minutes, isn't it?
time. No, it's
Or what was I looking at?
45 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I listened to I was looking at the Prospects March edition.
Oh yeah, see
That one's long.
That's what I was talking about.
Okay,
with
yeah,
the-
45 minutes. That's right.
Yeah, those are the EP tracks.
Yeah.
I guess they combined them with the other
Yeah, I was
album,
gonna
which I
say-
actually haven't listened to as much. So, but I'd like to.
I
Check
don't think
those
I ever
tracks
listened
out.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends, fantastic. And it's like I just always knew, like whenever I put these lists together, I know that it's up there.
Yeah, totally.
So, and hate on Coldplay, but you cannot say that this is a bad album. I
Yeah.
don't care what you say.
You can hate on some of their post Milo Xylo stuff all you want. I will defend Milo Xylo too. I think that's a fun album. I don't care. I have no
It is
shame.
fun, but
No
not as
shame.
good.
Not as good as Viva La Vida.
Vida.
That's kind of when people started hating Coldplay, was that album. And I was like, I liked this one. It was my summer jam when it came out. I don't know.
It's a good album.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's harmless.
But yeah, that's my number tres.
Dope.
So
All right, my number 2. I don't know if this will surprise you or not. Probably not. It's probably obvious.
just say it, okay?
Peppa Pig, my first album. No,
Veggie Tales sing along.
my second favorite album is Heretic Pride by the Mountain Goats.
Fog lifts from the harbor, dawn goes down today. An agent crests the shadows of a nearby alleyway. Piles of broken bricks, signposts on the path. Every moment points toward the aftermath. Yeah.
No, yeah, I
Probably no surprise.
I was gonna guess that is.
Yeah, it was that or Goths. I was kind of juggling, but
Goths is my personal favorite.
yeah,
but-
Goths. It's weird because I'm a bit of a newer Mountain Goats fan because I got into them when Goths came out, which is not that long ago,
Yeah, same.
and which is a weird way to get into them because it's so different from everything else. But I loved it, and I knew their other stuff was more like acoustic, like not like that album at all, and I went through their discography because I mean Matt, it's his favorite band, and I listened to them because he loved them so much,
Yeah.
and now they're one of my favorite bands ever.
Right.
And this album in particular is my favorite album of theirs, which I don't know if that's a weird take in the Mountain Goats community to say this is my favorite album by them.
I feel like it is their most.
Because usually it's like Sunset Tree
popular.
or All Hail West Texas and stuff
From
like that.
from what I've gathered, Heretic Pride is like the quintessential Mountain Goats.
At least with
album.
like full bands Mountain Goats
yeah,
stuff.
you know, you have your purists who love the solo lo-fi stuff. And,
Yeah,
you know,
but I just think this is
more
the
power
best
to you.
of like full band and acoustic chills. It tackles every sound that I like about the Mountain Goats. It has more chill acoustic stuff. It has upbeat acoustic jams, and then it has stuff with like electric guitar, and but it's all contained within a similar mood. You know,
Yeah.
it gives me this is a very strong example of. I listen to it and I just feel very strong visuals radiate from the sound and obviously from John Darnielle's lyrics. So I love this album. I can't remember when I listened to it in the context of getting into Mountain Goats, but I remember this one definitely solidified John Wurster as one of my favorite drummers ever. I love the drumming on this album. The production of this album in general is so good.
Yeah.
I love how the drums sound, the guitar tones that they use, and just a lot of good string section stuff. Like the use of string sections in this album is so gorgeous. And that's the thing. I love this album. It goes from being like, oh, this is a fun bop to this is gorgeous. Oh, this is like nice. Oh, this is really cool and interesting. And this is
Yeah.
upbeat.
It's kind of like a nice roller coaster.
Yeah, it tackles a lot of different sounds, but it still feels contained within an album. It doesn't feel scattered. It all keeps a very similar mood while keeping you interested. Like, what's the next song going to be like? But it's also not jarring and totally different that it doesn't make sense. But like Sax Romer #1, great intro.
Yeah.
San Bernardino is a nice chill song. Heretic Pride, title track, is super great. And then Autoclave, New Zion.
Autoclave's
So
great.
Desperate is a very pretty song. In the Craters on the Moon is so good. Oh man, the way that song builds up is so good. And then after that is my favorite song from Mountain Goats and on this album in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Lovecraft in Brooklyn is so incredible.
Lovecraft in Brooklyn.
The visuals that song give me when I listen to it, it's just it's such a strong, I'm going to say aesthetic, I'm sorry, but it's a strong aesthetic this song has. And one thing I really love about John Darnielle in this album is, and this is common throughout a lot of his albums, obviously, but the way he's able to sing stuff where on writing it just would sound like someone taught, like it just looks like a sentence someone would say.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't read like a lyric, it would read like a story.
Right.
You know, or the moment in Lovecraft in Brooklyn where he says, "Woke up afraid of my own shadow, like genuinely afraid."
Yeah.
Like only he can sing stuff like that
Yeah.
and not sound like he's forcing it.
Woke up afraid of my own shadow, like genuinely afraid. Headed for the pawn shop to buy myself a switchblade. Someday something's coming from way out beyond the stars to kill us while we stand here. It'll store our brains in mason jars. And then a girl behind the counter, she asks me how I feel today. I feel like Lovecraft in Brooklyn.
So there's a lot of moments like that on this album, and having the when he does the kind of fast-paced thing, like he just
Yeah,
says
he makes
words
it work.
he sings words really fast,
Yeah.
and it's a very strong style. But he'll do that, and then he'll also have songs where it's slow and he's pretty and more high-pitched, and
Pretty.
it's a very, very, very varied, and it's an extremely varied album, and it's always, it's a perfect example of something you can listen to all the way through. Because there's plenty of albums I love, but I won't want to just listen through it in order. But this is a lot of my favorite albums do constantly change it up, but in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the closer, and I also just love the song names on this record, like In the Craters on the Moon, Lovecraft in Brooklyn, How to Embrace a Swamp Creature, Marduk T-shirt Men's Room Incident, Michael Myers Resplendent, or however you say that. I'm dumb, but just,
Yeah, you're right.
it's all has this weird, almost horror-like vibe to it. It doesn't sound spooky. The only time it actually sounds kind of creepy and spooky is Lovecraft in Brooklyn and maybe in Craters on the Moon. But it's a song, it's an album that radiates a very specific energy for me, and some of my favorite songwriting and lyricism ever. And I just love the acoustic rock vibe that it consistently has throughout. And just really tight production and some of my favorite drumming. It's not crazy technical drumming. It's just really solid, and the drumming
and it fits
adds
what the song needs.
Yeah, the songs would sound completely different without those drums, which that might be a really stupid observation to make, but just the beats he brings to those songs, like so much personality comes from the drumming for a lot of these songs, in my opinion. So that, yeah, just a lot of good things from this album. So yeah, Mountain Goats, they're also my second favorite band in general. So it's not really a surprise that my second favorite album is from them. So,
Yeah, they're one of my favorites too.
yeah.
And I do enjoy this album. A lot of the songs on this album. So, and I can't really say much else other than what you've already said. So
For sure, I tackled it all.
TMG, Mountain Goats.
Heretic Pride.
When the scum begins to circle the drain.
All right, so my number two is, I don't think you would have ever expected this.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think I know what your number one. I know what your number one is. I'm very confident I know what your number one is, but I don't know what your number two could be.
Okay. My number two is "Sigh No More" by Mumford &
Oh wait, no,
Sons.
I was right.
I threw you off with it. I don't think you'll expect this.
Well, yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh, I guess it's not Sigh No More. Literally, that's what I thought in my brain.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
nope.
I knew Sigh No More was going to be in your top 5. And at first, I was like, it's his number one. And I was like, no, wait, no, I know what his number one is now.
So, yeah.
So when he said that, I was like, is Sigh No More not in your top 5? Or not? So that threw me off.
No, it is.
So I was right.
Serve God, love me, and man. This is not the end. Live unbruised, we are friends. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And we had our Mumford and Sons podcast episode.
Yeah,
so
it's been a while since that though. So
it has been a while. So I'll just try to reiterate some of my thoughts about it without being too repetitive. But I could pick any Mumford and Sons album. I love them all. One I don't love as much as the others.
Yeah.
But in terms of like quality, a lot of the albums, Sigh No More, Babel, Wilder Mind, yes, Wilder Mind, are kind of pretty equal in quality.
yeah.
So this kind of goes back to the whole like nostalgia thing and like emotions being attached to it. I have a lot attached on this album.
Yeah, I do too, honestly.
So I'll go through that and then I'll go through like what I actually like about the album.
Right, yeah.
Of course, this was the first Mumford and Sons album, and it was the first one that I ever got into.
Uh-huh.
And me and all my best friends at the time, we all got into it like at the same time. And
Yeah.
I just there is like no other album that has so much friendship history attached to it like this album.
Yeah.
And me and my friends, we were in a band and we loved like metal music and, we listened to a lot of the same bands like Devil Wears Prada, For Today,
Yeah.
whatever. But this one, for some reason, and maybe it's just because of because it's not metal, and so you don't have to scream in order to sing along with it or whatever. But this one, for some reason, we bonded so much with this album. I can't tell you how many times we would just like break out into like one of the songs from the album without even like playing the song. We would just start singing like "Tell me now where was."
It's a very
my
easy
fault?"
sing-along album.
Yeah, it's almost like some of the songs are almost like kind of like British pub kind
Yeah,
of
exactly.
kind of tunes. So it's an album that means a lot to me, and somehow I ended up being the only one that kind of like stayed attached to Mumford and Sons.
Yeah,
everyone else
even
just got
even
boring.
I like this album was an introduction to a different world of music for me, because that was like when I was a little metalhead and I only listened to screamo, and I was in a car with someone from my church and a couple other people, and Roll Away Your Stone came on, and I was like, oh, this is cool, I like this a lot.
Yeah.
And I asked him who it was, and I went up and looked up the album online, and then I remember Babel was coming out pretty soon after that, so I got excited for that, and I remember getting the CD and listening to it in my car after getting it from Best Buy. So, and then I got into more folk music because of that, like Fleet Foxes, and eventually, obviously, Mountain Goats, and that introduced me to folk music that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And so I commend this album still to this day. It's really nostalgic for me too. Even though I didn't listen to it when I was a kid, obviously, but I was like a teenager.
It was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's
so.
like I can safely call it nostalgia at this point. And it used to be my favorite album of all time, honestly. But even though it's probably not one of my top 10 favorite albums or anything, it's still an album I can fondly listen to and love still, just because I have a lot of memory with it, and I still greatly appreciate what it did for me, because I wouldn't have gotten into a lot of bands if I didn't get into them first.
They were very
good gateway band for me, so I have a lot attached to this album too. So
yeah, and I don't know,
I'll always defend it, even though
when I find something that I love, it just stays with me. That's why I've been such a avid and devout fan of Mumford and all of his sons ever since. And yeah, it's the same for me too, because like at the time, all I was listening. Well, I mean, my tastes were still pretty diverse at the time. They just weren't that great.
Yeah.
But this did introduce me into a whole new world of like indie music, folk music. So I'm very appreciative of that. And a lot of people will say that like Sigh No More and Babel, they're like practically identical. But I would actually argue against that. I mean, like stylistically, yeah, they're very much the same, you know, especially when compared to like Wilder Mind. But Babel had a bit.
It was more percussive driven. It was more
percussive driven, and I
yeah.
think there was a bit more emphasis on like making the production a little bit more mainstream.
Totally,
which is fine, you know. And I love Babel.
It was a lot more. It was a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I like this album is because, you know, not that it's like lacking in any quality or anything or sounds amateur.
Yeah.
But it's got that like intentional, professional DIY kind of feel to it. If that makes
totally.
sense.
It's sloppy in the right ways. You know, it's not bad sloppy. It's just it's not so tightly.
it's
not
like
so
those,
tightly wound and perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of like those Pine Grove kind of vibes to like
it feels live.
It feels live, and all of a lot of the music sounds very like roomy, you know, which is great for like a folk album, and that's something that you want, and so it's pretty consistent throughout a lot of the album. It's simple. Some of the songs are very simple, but in a good way, in a very like heartfelt way,
right?
You know, in the way that like some guy with an acoustic guitar like sings his heart out, even though it's not what this album is. There's you know, a lot of creative things added into a lot of the songs, and The Cave happens to be my favorite song of all time,
right?
Not just by Mumford & Sons, but just in general.
I will hold on hope, and I won't let you choke on the noose around your neck, and I'll find strength in pain, and I will change my ways. I'll know my name as it's cold again.
And there's just so many great tunes on here that you can sing along to. And one of my favorite things about this album is how it opens up with Sigh No More. You know, it opens up with this you know soft guitar, but then like all these vocals come in, and the lyricism is just so good. For Sigh No More and for like a lot of the albums, because I know that Marcus Mumford at the time was into a lot of reading. A lot of the lyricism was inspired by like Shakespeare and like Greek philosophers and the Bible as well. And so it's really cool. Marcus has always been one of my favorite songwriters as well, and a lot of great songs. Winter Winds is a classic.
Oh yeah, totally.
Roll Away Your Stone, you mentioned before.
That's my personal favorite, but it's probably just because it was the first song I ever heard from them.
Yeah, I mean, The Cave was the second song that I ever heard from them.
Yeah.
First song I ever heard from them was After the Storm, and I think I mentioned this in the Mumford & Sons podcast, but me and our mutual friend Griffin, we were watching some old Olin Rogers videos, and he had After the Storm in the credits of one of his songs.
Right.
And it said in the credits, you know, like song by Mumford & Sons. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've heard of him. And then we looked up The Cave. And so
rad.
That's what hooked me. And, and also Dust Bowl Dance is...
I love that one, yeah.
That one's like a underrated track.
That's probably one of the, it's probably
like
my second favorite on the album.
It's like so heavy. It's the only song on the album that has like a full drum kit on there. And it just goes so hard.
Yeah.
I love it.
Seal my heart and break my pride. I've nowhere to stand and now nowhere to hide. Align my heart, my body, my mind to face what I've done and do my time.
They're really good at the album specifically. It does a lot of starts off quiet, builds up to something kind of deal.
Yeah.
There's quite a few songs like that, which I appreciate.
I Gave You All. It's
Yeah.
very similar to that. And Awake My Soul is also a classic. That was one of the first songs that Short Forest ever covered.
Oh, nice. That was before my time.
Yeah. Oh, and Thistle and Weeds. I just could name all these songs.
Yeah.
And just say how great, and some of them I feel like are underrated, but you get the gist. It's just a very consistently good album, and I can find no flaws about it, honestly.
Right.
Say what you want about Mumford & Sons, but it's just a great album through and through, and I love listening to it when I'm driving.
It is a very good driving through the country with your windows down kind of album.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these songs even actually like got me through some pretty hard teenage emotional times. So it was like my emo album for the time.
Yeah.
Like
I can
Gave
relate.
You All. It's like, you rip it from my hands
Yeah.
and you swear it's all gone. It's
This is how I feel right now.
She ripped my heart.
I gave you all,
I gave you all.
and you killed it all.
Tell me now, it was my fault in loving you with all my heart.
Marcus is good at sounding mad.
Oh, yes, for
He's
sure.
an
He has
angry
some of
man.
my favorite vocal delivery.
Right.
Oh, like, especially in Dust Bowl dances, like, and do my time.
Oh, yeah.
So good. But, yeah, that's my number 2, Sigh No More, Mumford & Sons, forever.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
There will come a time you'll see, with no more tears and love will not break your heart, but dismiss your fears, get over your hill and see what you find there, with grace in your heart and flowers in your hair.
So cool.
Are you ready?
For
to have your
So
mind-
this is your number 1.
You ready to have your mind blown with the album you totally are expecting, I'm sure. So, my number 1
Ooh,
favorite
no.
album of all time is Brother Sister by Me Without You.
I do not exist. We faithfully insist. Failing in our separate ships and from each time you care about. Tiring and trying. The necessary dies. Like the horseshoe crab in its proper season shed its shell. Such distance from our friend. Like a scratch across a lens. Made everything look wrong from anywhere we stood. Our paper flew away before we'd left the bay. So half blind we wrote these songs on sheets of salty wood.
Caught me making eyes at the other boatman's wife, and heard me laughing louder at the jokes told by their daughters. I'd set my course for land, but you well understand it takes a steady
What? No.
No
yeah,
surprises there from
No
anyone that's ever
surprises.
talked to me. I love everything, every aspect about this album. It's my favorite album artwork. I want a tattoo of the fish tower. Just the concept of the way this album flows, it blends, because this is my favorite band, obviously, and this
Yeah.
I believe to be, which this is a common consensus among the Me Without You like community, but this is the quintessential album because it's their third studio album, and it blends like every sound they've done before and after. It's like a perfect blend of every sound that they've ever done. You know, more heavy stuff, kind of more folky, like acoustic stuff, some pretty straightforward like rock tunes, and then some spacey atmospheric
It's
instrumental
like the
moments.
perfect middle.
Yeah, it's like everything that I like about Me Without You in one album, you know, because there's albums where it's like, this is their folk album and I love it, and this is Untitled, it's really heavy, and then A to B Life is like really heavy, but this one has elements of every other album they've ever done in one package, and that's why it's my favorite. And This is the one, The Messes of Men, the opener to this, is arguably my favorite opener of all time. With those other two, it's like I couldn't really decide, but I could probably safely say that Messes of Men is my favorite opener for any album ever. And this album also happens to have my favorite closer of all time, too. So it's just a perfect sandwich for me, you know?
It's a good sandwich.
It's a little too ideal because it does blend my past taste in music of more heavy, raw, like yelling, but also has moments of kind of folky, weird, like more acoustically driven music that's more soft, and it's just a blend of all music I love almost, which is why it's my favorite, and I listen to it constantly. I probably listen to it like once a week. Maybe not that much, but I do listen to it a lot. I do listen to this album a lot. I would maybe one.
I don't think I even listen to my number one.
It might be
I probably
exaggerating.
return to it like every few months.
Maybe
or
once
something.
every other week. I could say, because I'm at work and I'm listening to music constantly at work, so I'll be listening to stuff and I'll just throw this on every now and then. But it is an album I go back to constantly. Every song on it is good, and every song has some kind of standout moment instrumentally or lyrically. Even one of the lesser songs where it's still an amazing song, but maybe I'm like, well, this is maybe my least favorite song on the album, but it still has a moment of where the instrumentation switches up and it has something that's really cool, and I can always look forward to that moment when I go to listen to it. Yeah. So nothing on this album bores me. It has my favorite flow of and progression of any album, because you have your opener and then it has a couple bangers like Dryness in the Rain and then Wolf Am I, which Wolf Am I and Oh Porcupine might be my favorite songs on the album. It's really nearly impossible for me to choose.
Not a sweater poorly knit. That's like everyone's favorite.
It's really, I mean, that song's incredible, but it definitely is the song that's probably their most popular song. But Wolf Am I is incredible. That has some of my favorite drumming. The drumming on this album is great. I think Mike, the guitarist, is such an underrated guitarist. He's so good at knowing what a song needs and coming up with really fun, interesting, earwormy guitar rhythms. And usually it's like rhythm. Like, he does lead stuff a lot, but he's really good at guitar rhythm and just being creative with that and stuff that is super memorable. And even if it's not the standout of the song, it's just every instrument just does exactly what it needs to do on this album. And I love when I reference the flow of this album.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I was just thinking, like, in the middle of recording, like, the guitar's doing something crazy and you just hear, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. He's rebelling. Kill him.
Smell of hot summertime trash. It's a city noise of a busy street. The train derailed and a two-car head-on freeway crash each time we meet. And if it comes to some sort of surprise, she said that I seem so composed.
But I love how this album has breaks of acoustic songs between every couple songs.
Orange Spider.
Yeah, the Spider songs were, and I mean, I'm so dorky about that. I know all the trivia behind this album. Like, the Spider songs, it was originally one song, and then someone said, what if we split it up into 3 parts throughout the album? And that alone makes this album, I mean, this...
It's like putting the album into acts.
Yeah, it still would have been an amazing album if it didn't have that, but having that, I think, really made this album special.
Yeah.
It fades down to Yellow Spider, and then you have a couple bangers, and it goes into Orange Spider, and then a couple more bangers. It's literally 3 songs and then a Spider song, 3 songs Spider, 3 songs Spider. And the Spider songs, it hasn't been made obvious yet. There's Yellow Spider, Orange Spider, and Brownish Spider, and those are 3 songs, and they're low-key, more acoustic songs.
Yeah.
And they split up the album into 3 acts. And I think it's super cool. And then after Brownish Spider, there's the closer, In a Sweater Poorly Knit, which rhymes with another song on the album, In a Market Dimly Lit.
Yeah.
It's just like, I love their song titles, and that's common with all their albums. I mean, I can gush over quite a few of their albums in this same way, but this just happens to be my favorite. But just every aspect of this album, so many lyrical standout moments for me. Lots of tattooable quotes. It's just so
Tattoo
good.
my whole body.
Yeah, and
Me without you lyrics.
and it's just so good. Ever since I heard it, I knew it was like a Shadow of the Colossus video game moment for me, where I played that, I knew it was my favorite game instantly.
Yeah.
The second I listened to this album, the first time I had listened to it, I knew it was my favorite album.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed since, and it probably never will not be my favorite album unless Me Without You somehow get back together and make even more albums. Untitled came pretty close, if I'm being honest.
That's probably my favorite album from them.
Untitled is
I
really
really
people
love Pale Horses.
Pale Horse is amazing. I think all their albums are amazing, but that's because I'm biased. But a lot of people kind of hate on Untitled for some reason, and I don't.
They
really
just don't understand.
they just don't get it. But
they're
I mean,
led astray.
there's quite a few of their albums that I've rated 10 out of 10 personally. But yeah, this album, it just means a lot to me lyrically, sonically, production, instrumentally, conceptually, artistically. Just it's everything I could want from a music project.
Yeah.
And I don't expect any album to ever top it. I can't see me liking an album more than Brother Sister, if I'm being honest. I don't know if it could ever happen.
You're stubborn.
It would have to be from Me Without You. But it's just such a specific, like 1 in a million chance, you know.
Yeah.
Every specific sound, it has so many individual things of multiple genres that just happen to align with everything I love, and it's just this perfect blend. And if my favorite album would have to be, if another album like this was made, you know, song structure and just album flow and stuff,
Yeah.
it would just have to be a copy of this album. You know,
Right.
It's just set up in such a specific way that it just fills that shape of hole in my music heart. But I mean, some of their other albums have come close, but I mean, it could happen. I can't say it's impossible, because maybe a new band comes out and they do something that improves upon what this album presents and how
They
it presents
cover
it.
the whole album
Yeah,
and make it better.
they just sing it a little better. But it's also just Aaron's voice. I can't even say he's like an amazing singer, you know, because hearing a lot of live videos, he's pretty rough when it comes to pitch, like me. But
me too.
just performance and emotionally, I just get so much out of. And he is a good singer. He's not a perfect singer. He can be very sloppy live and stuff. But
yeah.
I like that.
That's his style.
Yeah, he's just really upfront and raw, and he's not trying to be like a perfect, beautiful singer. It's just all emotion. You know,
He's beautiful to me.
So I could go on about this album forever, but I don't want to drag the podcast
No, yeah,
out,
I mean, it's a great album. I love a lot of it.
Yeah. Every time someone tells me they've listened to it, I get really happy. I got some of my friends to listen to it for the first time, and some people aren't going to like it, and I always understand, because it is an acquired taste band. They've literally joked about that. I think there was a story where someone met Aaron one time after a show, and he was like, "Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm an acquired taste," or something like that. But yeah, it's just a very, very specific thing, and just the stars lined up on this record for me.
Yeah.
In the way that like a game like Shadow of the Colossus just struck me in a certain way. So yeah, that's all I got to say.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Well, good. Hey, you're number
So
one.
that's my favorite
You made
album
it.
of all time.
And hey, we're doing pretty good on time, actually.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, we just got yours left, and then recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna
I
order
still
a pizza.
don't know what I'm gonna recommend.
Better
But
hurry.
so did you say you think you know what my number
Oh
one
yeah,
is?
I think I know.
Okay.
I totally know because you haven't mentioned this band yet, so I know it has to
Okay.
be number one. Yeah.
Yeah. Further clarifying how much of a basic B word I am.
I don't think this is a basic first. I don't think this is a basic favorite album at all. I don't know anyone that this would be their favorite album. You know?
Well, yeah, I know, but like once I say it, people are gonna be like, "What?"
yeah, it's kind of cool. You know?
I'm just gonna. I love how you. I haven't even said it, and you're still.
Oh,
Like,
I just know what it is.
Okay, here we go. My number one album of all time is "Take Me to Your Leader"
Yep.
by the Newsboys.
Yeah, I knew it. That's what it is. Because I for a second I thought Say No More would be your number one, and then I was like, no way.
Which, granted, because Mumford and Sons is currently my favorite band.
But I also remember when you were showing me a bunch of stuff from Newsboys, because I was like, I want to listen to them more because you really liked them, and you made a list, and you're like, yeah, Take Me to Your Leader is easily I remember you mentioned it being your favorite album,
Yeah.
back when you made that. So I just remembered.
For a lot of
that.
people, it is like the quintessential Newsboys album.
It has really awesome album art.
Oh yeah, I love the cover.
Yeah, it's super cool album art.
And it's also got some really funny pictures of the band members.
Yeah, and I listened to it quite a few times, and the songs that you recommended, and it is really good. I like it's.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say I'm like a huge Newsboys fan,
Well, no.
honestly, but I like this album a lot. It's really good.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that I literally grew up with this album.
Yeah.
I was like probably 7 years old when I started listening to this album.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say that it was my favorite back then.
Yeah.
Back then, I was just a kid and I didn't really have a concept of albums. I mean, when I was a kid, I probably would have said that their Shine the Hits album was my favorite.
Yeah.
Because that was like the first CD that I ever got. And it just had all their hits plus a few new songs, which is what a hits album should be, by the way.
Right, yeah.
You should put some new stuff on there.
Totally.
But anyways, I remember my sister actually had this album recorded on cassette. And that's how I listened to
nice.
it. But
Recorded on cassette?
yeah.
So
Because that's what you did back then. It was like
recording it off the radio or something? Or?
no, I guess she like borrowed it from someone and then recorded it.
Oh,
on tape.
okay. Gotcha.
So, but it wasn't until like into my adulthood that I realized how good this album is.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Newsboys they were my number one band for years. And, there was a time that I said that I actually did like the Michael Tate Newsboys. I don't anymore.
Yeah.
But I can still go back to this album and listen to it and enjoy it. Unironically, it's still that good. And I feel like out of all their albums, even ones that came after it that I still enjoyed, it's their most mature one.
Yeah, I agree.
Somehow,
It's not like super corny or dorky.
I mean, well,
it does. It has
yeah.
moments, but I can listen to it and not be like roll my eyes,
right? Yeah, and
Like, it's just a solid like rock album,
Yeah,
it doesn't
and-
feel worshipy or anything. It's just just
and
it's
even
fun.
the ones
It's
that
fun.
even the ones that are like have more like worshipy songs are still like jams.
Like melodically, it's not super generic or just typical.
Yeah, and it was a lot of it was the genius team of Peter Furler, who was I guess okay. So during this album, lead vocals were shared by Peter Furler and John James.
Yeah.
Peter Furler was still the drummer at the time, but Duncan Phillips was like kind of traded off with him too and played percussion.
Right.
But the two of them traded off. But Peter Furler and Steve Taylor, who co-wrote a lot of their songs for them, most of their songs at the time, they wrote the songs together. Peter Furler was great at writing the music, and Steve Taylor is a mastermind at lyrics. He's probably my favorite lyricist of all time. And they worked together so well because you could have like a fun, upbeat song like Breakfast or Reality, but the lyrics that Steve Taylor would write, like, yeah, they're fun and a little quirky, but they're like really clever and really make you think. And I made a whole video about this on my YouTube channel because I made a video on one of their more recent songs that is trying really hard to be old school Newsboys.
Oh, really?
But the way it lacks is its lyricism. Its lyricism is not clever.
For sure.
It's cheesy in bad ways.
Yeah.
But the Newsboy, Take Me to Your Leader, pulls it off so well with a lot of their...
like Breakfast is a really cheesy kind of dorky song, but it's still like fun.
But it's a song about this group of friends who their friend has just died.
Yeah.
And he had some sort of thing for breakfast.
When the toast is burned and all the milk has turned and Captain Crunch is waving farewell. When the big one finds you, may the song remind you that they don't serve breakfast in hell.
I think my favorite song on it was Cup of Tea.
Cup of Tea is a underrated gem.
Yeah.
It is.
I think that was the one I liked a lot. I liked when they got almost like just
it is
more of a rock vibe.
I
think.
and the one thing I love about this album, it's like a perfect blend between like Nirvana rock and the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, it was like
if those two had a child, it would be this.
It was Christian Nirvana Peppers.
Yeah. But Cup of Tea has always been one of my favorites because like it's like I love the bass line. It's one of my favorite bass lines.
Kick start, here's overdue, life as a star. Waiting tables hadn't done that so far. Spotlight, a dream for many a year. The leather jacket Jimmy's ever ready stage wear. Sorry, I'm not your cup of tea, but I don't mind. Yeah, I said I don't mind. At least I know you're thinking about me. Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, I said I don't mind.
Okay, that's the other thing that I really love about this album is that the bass is incredible on this album.
That was one thing I remember really liking.
It was Phil Joel's, this was his first album, and he really wasn't that much of a bass player before joining the band. He was more of a guitar player, but he auditioned to be a bass player, and he kind of had to learn a few things about it. But I think it worked well because like his guitarist mind kind of influenced his bass playing on it, and it's really fun.
Very like melodic bass playing, which I always appreciate.
And I like how it kind of goes against the grain of the song, where it's not just following the bass line like you know paint by numbers whatever, but he's like really being creative with how he plays it, and so that was one thing I really love about this album. And Cup of Tea is just a great example of like lyrics where you hear them and you're just like, what?
yeah, totally.
Because like let me read like a a line from here. Bring it all into perspective. The tongue will steer the ship ahoy. Spark up a flame from the pain of habanero sauce. A word's forever. When we speak, we set 'em free. So watch your mouth and you be careful what you say, Jimmy.
It's like weird, yeah.
It's like, what? But it's so fun. And I love how the lyrics are clever, but they're also like fun to sing. It's like rhythmic, almost like kind of like rapping.
Right.
But my favorite song of all time, it's my favorite Newsboys song. Mm-hmm. It wasn't always growing up because it's such a heavy song. It's not fun like Shine or Breakfast.
Yeah.
But it's like really heavy, and
like
it's
thematically it's heavy, or
yes.
Okay.
And just sound wise,
yeah.
It's one of their heavy. It's probably their heaviest song in terms of the sound. But Lost the Plot. Is an incredible song.
You know, I think I remember that being one of the standouts to me too, actually.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking like, whoa, that built up quite a bit.
A lot of like old school Newsboys fans say like, yes, Lost the Plot is amazing.
Yeah, I'm listening to it a bit right now in my ear.
Yeah. And Peter Furler recently said, he's like, yeah, I've kind of recently realized that that's my favorite Newsboys song.
Yeah, this one is really
and they've been playing it more live, which I really love.
That's good.
And what that song is all about is basically how like when Jesus was here with us, I'm realizing. Sorry, guys. I am a Christian, and yes, Newsboys is a Christian band, but I legitimately really like this.
Technically,
this album.
my favorite album was technically a Christian album.
Me Without You, yeah, they're Christian.
It's not like worship music, but it's very biblically thematical.
Yeah. So that's why I'm sure, like, when I said the album, people were like, "What?
Yeah.
Newsboys? Aren't they the God's Not Dead people?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
This album is also 96.
Yes.
It's not like
I guess I should mention
it's
that.
Not like
pretty
contemporary
old album.
Christian music. It's just it's not even like a worship album.
It's not. There are some like worship aspects about it, like the song "Breathe."
Like you can pick out that they're Christians from it, but it's not like "Holy, holy is the Lord Almighty." Like it's not just worshiping.
Yeah, and that's something that I love. Like the song "Breathe," where the chorus is like "Breathe on me, breathe, O breath of God," but the lyrics are like "Thursday the third eye titles, entry mistake." It's like it's still creative, and so the chorus is almost kind of like a break and kind of a contrast, and I really love that song. But Lost the Plot is going back to that, is about how like when Jesus was on this earth and how we just kind of missed. Oh, I guess not me, but like the songwriter is saying how like. It's like I really feel like I missed the message of what you were trying to say, so I want to like make a restart and work on that again. And that's what lost the plot. I lost the plot.
Exactly.
And almost criticizing Christians today. Just like we need to get like back on track.
I like that a lot.
Let's be blind. We're a little unfaithful. What do you want? Are you still listening? 'Cause we're obviously not. We've forgotten numbers, love. We have lost the plot. Why you still calling? You forgave, we forgot. We're such experts at stalling that we've lost the plot. Lost the plot. Lost the plot. Lost the plot.
Yeah, and it's the lyrics are really great on that one, and I love how like that one ends out and it's like a total banger of a song, and then the album just kind of ends out with an interlude, not an interlude, a reprisal of an earlier song, "Breathe." They go back to that chorus, and it's like more acoustic, and it really ends off the album nicely, and it's just great. And you got the more like fun, funky songs that are just great, like rock pop songs with clever lyrics and meaningful messages.
Yeah.
And it's just something that is really lost in Christian music today. And I really feel like people need to look back to this album and like what it does and like learn from it.
For sure.
It's like I said, it's like I'm not like you where I listen to the album like every week.
Yeah.
But it's something that's I guess I did grow up with it like literally since I was a child.
Yeah.
So I like hardly need to in order to remember that it's great, but it's just always been implanted in my head, you know, what this album is about and like how good it is, and I like realized into my adult life I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite album. It's really great. And I really wish that I could get this on vinyl, but I don't really see Newsboys releasing that anytime soon.
That'd be really cool, but
I don't think they've ever released any vinyls, honestly.
Huh.
Not a whole lot of Christian artists are doing that, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
So
the market for that just isn't the same as, because, you know, Christian bands, it's like, well, you don't collect Christian music. It's just to worship music
because
to.
A lot of the Christian audience is like,
they're not interested in collecting
moms
music. Yeah.
And, you know.
It's just stuff for church and the radio. And,
right.
and the car.
So, I mean, it's understandable. More like indie Christian artists do vinyl, but I don't know. I would love it if they just if they did it just this once for this
real
album. But yeah, Take Me to Your Leader, Newsboys. It's my number one.
It's a goodie.
Breathe on, breathe on, breathe on me, breathe the breath of God, breathe on me till my heart is new, breathe on me, breathe the breath of life, breathe on me till I'm resting in you, breathe on me, breathe the breath of God, breathe on me till my heart is new, breathe on me, breathe the breath of life, breathe on me till I'm resting in you.
And that was our top 5 favorite albums of all time.
Heck yeah.
What'd you think, guys?
Tell us your 5 favorite albums.
Yeah, comment below, whatever. Blah, blah, blah.
It would be interesting if Spotify actually allowed people to comment on podcast episodes.
I wouldn't be surprised because now,
because they're gonna allow video now, right?
Yeah, they're with like the whole Joe Rogan podcast.
I wouldn't be surprised
on.
if they implement that because the podcast section of Spotify is kind of a lot different than the music.
I would be totally down if Spotify like just became the new YouTube.
Yeah,
you know?
that'd be interesting actually. Yeah,
I mean, I don't completely trust Spotify, but like
an
alternate
to
YouTube
it.
Needs to get its crap together.
For real.
Anyways, I guess I gotta.
Yeah, time
think
for your
of a
recommendation.
I don't want to give a recommendation of music.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna do
What's
that.
a good movie you've watched?
Okay, so my recommendation for this episode is going to be a film that both me and Mitchell watched together. It's called The Assistant.
Yes.
And
everyone hates it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, it's an example of like a poorly marketed film.
It's an It Follows situation. Not It Follows, sorry. It Comes at Night situation where the advertising for the movie made it look like this huge, thrilling, high stakes horror thing, and then the movie is like really slow paced.
Same thing with Mother.
Yeah,
Mother
yeah,
had
totally.
the same kind of situation. But so I'm just going to start off by saying that this movie is not going to be for everyone. And I'll give a few, I guess, reference a few films just to give you a feel. Like, if you like these movies, you'll probably be okay with watching this movie because it's really slow. And a lot of people say they watch the movie and they're like, nothing happened. Well, then you just didn't get the movie.
Exactly.
But
it's
like,
very subtle storytelling.
Yeah, if you're a fan of slow movies like Manchester by the Sea, A Ghost Story, which is like as slow as you can get, honestly.
Right.
But I still like that movie. Would you say There Will Be Blood is kind of slow?
Kinda. I wouldn't say it. It has really like intense moments though.
Yeah.
I don't think I would call it like a slow movie.
If you can watch like indie films like that, just like really
Yeah.
artistic, if you're like a big
Even-
Marvel fan, you probably won't like this movie, but
Like if you thought something like Blade Runner 2049 was slow and boring, then you definitely won't like this. But if you're okay with a lot of scenes of people just doing things like normally and stuff, then you'll be fine.
yeah, well, I will say, like, the whole time I was glued to the screen watching this movie.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of subtleties about this movie, and I guess the concept of the film is this woman, the assistant, which the movie's about. She works at, and I don't even want to give too much away in case this is the kind of film for you.
Yeah.
But she is this office assistant in like a film studio.
It's like a movie production office.
Yeah, movie production office. She works for this big producer, and it's the whole movie is one day of her working is just a work day for her. But as you watch, you kind of start to see like, oh, there's something about this movie producer that doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah.
It's a little sketchy, and there's some like, sexual, allegation kind of stuff.
It's essentially
Harvey Weinstein, basically.
It's essentially, it's not literally Weinstein, but it's
Right.
it's essentially a movie mirroring someone what it looks like to be an assistant for him. And it's not like the assistant is the one involved in it, but it's just like it's a really interesting
It's
perspective.
like a fly on the wall sort of
Yeah,
thing.
like how people are treated and how people are essentially almost like, what's the word, like desensitized.
Yes, exactly.
How you're desensitized to people in Hollywood and stuff being a certain way, and how it's just something you don't talk about. And
Yeah,
and it's funny because people like watch the movie and they're like, nothing happened. I don't really know what the point was, and it's because it's supposed to be scary how unnoticed this stuff can be in the real
or
world.
how ignored or
And that's like
pushed
why it
aside.
affected me, because it's like it's so subtle, and people who watch it and go, I don't know what just happened, and it's because it's scary, because that's how it is in real life, where this stuff happens, but the people in that environment are desensitized. They're told not to worry about it, and it's just a thing that you just ignore, and it just happens, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, because it's like, you hear those stories, like the Me Too stories in like Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein, whatever, and you're like, well, how did like no one say anything?
Yeah.
This movie kind of
It shines a light on that perspective, and it's so
in
fascinating.
that environment and such. I mean, not saying it's not a documentary or anything.
Yeah.
but it's probably pretty accurate
it's
to what actually
it's
goes on.
definitely like a character study.
Yeah, and I forget her name. It's the girl from Ozark. She
Yeah.
does a fantastic job as the main actor. One of my favorite performances this year.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite movies from
Yeah,
this year.
I really liked it. I mean, I couldn't blame someone for thinking it was boring, but I enjoy subtlety, and I don't mind really slow movies. I wouldn't be surprised if I recommended it to my
Yeah.
parents or a
And it's
friend,
not-
and they're like,
it's-
that was boring.
Yeah, and it's
But
honestly, it's not that long. I don't know, like an hour and a half.
Yeah. Hour 20. It's like
But
90.
you can rent it on Amazon and such. And I just
It's very well filmed, too.
yes, I thought it was made really well, and yeah, you'll probably definitely hear me talking about it whenever we do our favorite films of the year. So
Yeah,
but
which I've like hardly watched anything this year. Which I mean,
I've
for
had
good
no
reason.
choice.
Literally, no movies have been coming out. So
yeah, I've had no choice but to like just like scrape the bottom of the barrel to find
Right.
whatever new movies are out
I
there.
got a lot of good
because
albums. I got a lot of albums I've liked so far this
I
year.
feel like you've
but
been listening to more music than I've been.
yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot. Of
I've
good
been
music
watching more movies.
this year. Yeah. A lot of good
For
music.
those of you who don't know, I've like started writing weekly film reviews for saygoodnightkevin.com, so you can check that out.
Nice.
I've watched
rad.
a lot of really bad movies, including Artemis Fowl and Fantasy Island and Capone, but some pretty good ones.
Yeah, those are all
like The Assistant, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, so Mitchell, I have an idea of. I like how this has kind of become like the tradition of each episode.
We
where
just kind of think of the next
talk
episode
about
at the
this
end.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a suggestion. I'm kind of
Okay.
surprised that we haven't done it. by
Ooh,
now.
interesting.
But what if next episode we talk about what I believe is both of our favorite film
Oh, Lord of the
or
Rings.
films? Yeah,
Yeah, we should.
yeah.
I'd be down.
Just have a Lord of the Rings episode.
Yeah, just like we can do like a retrospective on Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe even The Hobbit.
The Hobbit could be
could
probably
be
be its own episode. I don't know.
I don't know if I could talk about those movies in a whole episode. I don't like them
Yeah,
that
okay.
much.
We might touch on them.
We could talk about them for like 10 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
But mainly, yeah, I would love to talk about Lord of the Rings.
Okay, cool.
For
so
sure.
tune in next time to listen to our Lord of the Rings
And
episode.
just a warning, these are both of our favorite films of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It will be nothing but us just being mindless fanboys and worshiping
much.
Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
Did you know that Aragorn actually broke his toe? Hugo Weaving. Did you know that Viggo Mortensen broke his toe and he kicked the helmet? Like, this is gonna be us being dorks.
Yep, pretty much. But you guys are gonna love it, especially if you are fans. But yeah. So I think that's it.
Nice.
So thank you guys so much for all the love and support and the money that you give us. We don't get any money.
Yeah, no, we don't. Definitely
So
not.
here's this thin wheat cracker
Goodbye.
is for you.
I hate you.
You're like, I'm done.
Gross.
All right, bye everyone. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Podwood Forecast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe. And if you'd like for us to give you a shout out on the show, be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And also feel free to look in the show notes for links to our social media, our Twitter and Facebook. And as always, stay beautiful, and thanks for listening.